Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show goes behind the scenes with the people who have been there, done that, and seen the results. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. Revenue Builders is brought to you by Force Management. We help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Find us at forcemanagement.com. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast. I'm John Kaplan, here with my good friend, five-time CRO and best-selling author of the book, The Qualified Sales Leader, John McMahon. Johnny, how are you?
Good morning, Cap. Really excited about our guest today.
Yeah, so my brother, this is an amazing individual. I was introduced to this individual by my brother, who's seen him do some amazing things on a golf course. And before we just dig into it, I'd like to announce to the audience our guest's name is Dennis Walters. He is a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame with probably the most unique story of any person in the Hall of Fame. Dennis, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Good morning, John. Good morning, John.
Morning.
It's not an echo here, but thanks for having us on, and we really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So Dennis, I started the intro with talking about a very unique story of probably the most unique story in the World Golf Hall of Fame. Would you kind of talk to us a little bit about, from the beginning, golf has been a mainstay in your life, and talk to us a little bit about, kind of how golf became such an incredible passion of yours, and then we'll dig into what you've done in your golf career.
Well, I've always loved to play golf. My big dream was to play successfully on the PGA Tour, and I was going in that direction. When I was in high school, I won 3 state championships in New Jersey. I was born in Neptune. Now I live in Jupiter. Can't make it up.
But, yeah, right.
I went to play. I got a golf scholarship to go to North Texas State. I played there for 4 years. My senior year, I finished 11th in the National Amateur. The U.S. Amateur was medal play for about 6 years. I tried to qualify for the PGA Tour, and I got to the finals. I was going to try again when I had an accident. I was preparing for my second go round tour qualifying, and I was playing golf with a friend of mine, Ralph Terry, used to pitch for the New York Yankees. And he was out there already on the back nine. I went out to join him, and I was going down a steep hill in an old 3-wheel golf cart. And honestly, I don't know what happened, but I just remember being on the ground and I couldn't get up. I didn't have a mark on me, but I guess in my fall, I had landed wrong. I dislocated a vertebrae, which pinched my spinal cord. And I didn't really find out till about 6 months that this was going to be permanent. The doctors knew right away and told my parents and my sister, but they didn't tell me. I was in the hospital for 4 months. I was in rehab for 4 months. And about the second month in rehab, I went to the doctor and I said, listen, everyone said I might get better. I said, but I'm not one bit better. I said, what's the real deal here? And he said, he says, you're never going to walk again. Made me cry. And I said, what about playing golf? He said, forget it. And I said 2 words to him, and they weren't happy birthday.
I love that. Yeah.
And I said, I'm coming back to this dump one day and I'm going to hit golf balls off your lawn. And I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I figured that was my goal. When I was laying in the hospital bed, I never thought I was actually going to get out of the hospital bed. that I was in. I said, man, if I get out of this bed, it's going to be a miracle. And I finally, one day I got out of that bed and I promised myself, I said, I'm not giving up. I ain't quitting. I'm going to try and figure out how to do something. And to me, that something was playing golf. And that was what I wanted to do. I had no idea how to do it. But when I was in the last 2 weeks of rehab, you could go home. My parents lived about an hour away. So I went back. This is February 1975. I'm laying on the couch and got my head in my dad's lap. And I'm watching the Bing Crosby tournament, which is from Pebble Beach. It's still played at Pebble Beach. And a lot of my friends were playing. And I'm crying my eyes out watching this because I thought I should have been there too. And my dad goes, come on, champ, let's go hit some golf balls. And I said, how do you reckon I'm going to do that? He says, out of that blanking wheelchair. If you knew my dad, you could figure out the descriptive adjective that he used.
Yeah, right.
So I grabbed one of my favorite clubs, had a Byron Nelson 3-wood. I took that with me and we went over down the street. There was a little clubhouse that had a net set up. This is in February. And so he gives me the club and he says, here you go, take a swing. I said, I can't do it. My knees are in the way. And he said, all right, I'll be right back. So he goes home and he brought this giant pillow with him that I used to watch. I used to lay it on the floor and watch TV. It had arms on it. He folded the arms under it, picked me up, put me on the thing. Go ahead. I said, that's better, but I can't swing because I'm going to fall over. He went home and got a big strap and he tied it to the back of the car, the wheelchair. And so that was better. I took a swing. I said, this isn't that bad. So I took a swing and I almost tipped the chair over. He says, wait a minute, don't do that again. He says, I'll be right back. Third time, he comes back with a rope. He tied it to a pole behind me. And that's how I made my first swings. I did that for a couple weekends when I came home. And then finally, I said, I want to go outside and see where these are going. So we went outside the front lawn. He sets the whole thing up. It's about 38 degrees out. And he tied the rope to a tree and picked me up, put me on this wheelchair. And I made a swing and I kind of topped it. And I wasn't too happy about that. The second one, I hit a little thin, better, but thin. The third one I killed right down the street, went about 130 yards, 40 yards, perfect shot. And at that very instant, I realized that when I hit the ball right in the middle of the center of the face, it still felt good. And I said, I'm going to try and continue on this. And that was the beginning of my journey of I've made 45 national tours. Since then, I've made over 3,000 performances. I've traveled over 3 million miles doing this. And in the show that I do, it's great golf. It's bad jokes. I have a talking dog who hits golf balls.
Yeah.
And an uplifting message. That's our show. And the story that I tell, it's basically in three acts. The opening act, I then tell my story. The story is the journey that I have taken from laying paralyzed in that hospital bed to my induction into the World Golf Hall of Fame, which, by the way, was at Pebble Beach in 2019. And the last part of the show are trick shots, whatever you want to call them. Every shot has a little story that goes with it, and the shot is the punchline. And that's my story.
Yeah. And Dennis, right after the accident, I read that you received a letter from your golfing hero, Ben Hogan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was on one of the worst days I was having. I had to go down for some test, and I came back on a hospital gurney. They shoved me back into this bed. The bed that I was sitting on laying on was like something out of science fiction. It was like a Ferris wheel. And every 4 hours, night or day, they put like an ironing board in front of you, and this bed flipped you over, and it was to prevent bed sores. They probably have better technology now, but it was horrible. And so I came back. Now they got to toss me into this bed, and on the bed is a letter postmarked Fort Worth, Texas. And I figured it was one of my teammates or one of my friends from school who was sending it to me. And then I noticed it was from Ben Hogan. And so it was very uplifting. And what I tried to do is every time somebody sends me any type of correspondence, I try to reach back to them. It's usually about a friend or a brother or a sister who's had a similar situation. And I try to reach back to them with a word of encouragement or some way that I can help them. And really, to me, my story is about my journey, but it's also about the revelation that I had that, you know, in the beginning, I did this all for myself. I was trying to cope with what I considered to be a totally hopeless situation. I'm 24 years old. I'm just about to go where I want to go on the PGA Tour, and this happened to me. And so I was just trying to cope with this rotten, horrible situation. And as bad and as rotten as I felt every place else, when I came to the golf course, I felt better. So I knew for me, golf was good therapy. It was good mental therapy, emotional therapy, physical therapy. And so as I started to perform, right from the very first show, I told people how much I loved to play golf and how everyone told me it would be impossible to do. And what I was trying to do, among other things, was to show people what's possible, not only in golf, but life itself. And I tried to encourage them to do things in their life that they thought was impossible. As everyone said, golf would be impossible for me. So what happened right from the very first show is that people would come up to me after the show and they'd say, wow, that was great. Every show I do, almost without exception, somebody comes up crying, laughing, whatever, because they have a friend or a brother or a sister who's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And they see, wow, he's sitting around doing nothing and you're out here doing all this. Well, maybe my friend will be inspired by what you're doing. And so what happened was, I would get, in the beginning, I would get letters. I even got a few telegrams. That's how long I've been doing this. And then now it's emails, it's tweets, it's Instagram. All of these things came back to me as a gift because I've come to learn very obviously and very profoundly that if you can give someone hope, encouragement, and inspiration, those are three of the most precious gifts you can give everyone. And I feel like that's a gift that I receive because I know I'm helping these folks. And listen, this is not a cure for cancer or anything, but at least I feel like I'm making a small difference. And I think that makes me feel really great. And it's actually made it way better for me, because I have been able to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dennis, you were, I think
a lot of your shows are not just about hitting great golf shots, but mainly about getting people to have a dream. And then you tell them what to do as far as getting a dream. And if that dream doesn't work out, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is something I came up with a very long time ago. It's also the title of a documentary they made on me that you can watch on Peacock. It's an NBC app. It was shown on the Golf Channel, and it's called Get a New Dream. And what I always say in my show is, if you only take one thing away from this show, please take this. If you have a dream and it doesn't work out, that's okay, because the solution is simple. Get a new dream. Right. And that's exactly what I did. And that's what I do in my show. Part of the story that I'm telling in Act 2 is my dream. What was my dream? And I also encourage the audience to reach for their dreams, strive for excellence, and do something positive in their life they didn't think they could. And all the while, I am hitting great golf shots. I mean, that's always been extremely important to me because with the exception of the last golf tournament I played in this summer, I haven't, prior to this summer, I hadn't played in a golf tournament in 48 years. But when I was doing this, the first 17 years I did this show, I did it with my dad. My dad went on the road with me, and he would always grade me as to how I hit the ball. So as soon as it was over, he'd go 68, 71, 67, whatever. And that's all he would say. And
Yeah.
so I always looked at this as my competition.
Yeah.
And getting back to the tournament I played in this year, it was called the U.S. Adaptive Open. It's put on by the USGA, and it's like the U.S. Open for people with disabilities. This year was the first one they had. It's a historical event. And I said, I don't really play golf. I played a lot of golf when this first happened to me, and I had no shows in my late 20s and early 30s. But since then, as I started to get busy, and I just didn't really play golf. And so they made this announcement, and I was intrigued by it. And so I called up the USGA and I said, I have one question. Can I bring my dog? And they said, is it a service dog? And I go, yes. And he's legit too. And they said, yeah, that's okay. You can do it. And I said, okay, before I hang this phone up, I said, I want to know if I have this straight. I can take my dog with me in the cart while I play during the US Open. Yes. Okay, I'm filing an entry.
Awesome.
And so I then began the search to try and figure out how to play golf, because everybody said, oh, this will be a piece of cake. You hit the ball great. And I said, yeah, well, I hit the ball great on the range. I'm the only person gets paid to look good on the range. And I quickly found out there are such things to playing golf as chipping, putting, bunker shots, how to manage your game, picking the right club, hitting off uneven lies. You're hitting off a hanging lie, hitting a 5-wood to an uphill green strapped to a cart. That ain't all that easy. Okay. It's a lot easier hitting it off the range from a flat lie where you don't move. And so I gradually tried to figure this puzzle out. All my friends were helping me, touring pros, club pros, and everybody's sending me putters, and it was a mess. But I started to get better at it, and I actually won my division. It was divided into 8 divisions, and I was in the seeded golf division. So it's like, I think it's like winning the US Open in your category. Yeah. So I'm now undefeated in 48 years.
Congratulations.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Hey, yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you talked about friends and relationships that you've had. I know that Jack Nicklaus has been really a big part of your life since the beginning of your personal ordeal and all the way through. I think he and his wife were actually the ones that were inducting you into the Hall of Fame. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship with Nicklaus?
Well, Jack Nicklaus has always played a very important role in my career, and later on, Barbara Nicklaus as well, and I'll get into that. But Jack Nicklaus wrote me a letter when I was in the hospital. And when I got out of the hospital and I started to do my shows and try to figure out a way to play golf and do my shows, my career, the first show I did was 1977 at the PGA Merchandise Show. The PGA Merchandise Show is the biggest trade show for golf. Now it's held at the Orange County Convention Center, and at its height, there were the high point there is over 1 million square feet under roof. Everybody's there from the golf industry. In 1977, it was at the Contemporary Hotel, and the manufacturers they'd clear all the furniture out of a hotel room, and they'd have all their wares in there. It's hard to believe, but that's the way it started, and that's when I did my first show. And after that, my career was going nowhere fast. And around 1980 or so, my dad wrote a letter to Jack Nicklaus trying to explain to him as a father trying to help his son. Jack Nicklaus he's a great father, and Barbara Nicklaus is the gold standard for I would say for raising kids, being a great wife and great counsel. And so between the two of them, they really understand family and the importance of family. And so Jack said for me to go to Albany, Georgia, to the McGregor factory and McGregor home offices. And anyhow, they signed me to a contract, which was, that was the real turning point in my career, because they sent me everywhere to junior tournaments, corporate outings, PGA Tour events. And every time I did a show, my dad said that was an opportunity to get another show. So the more we did, the more we would, the more opportunities may have presented themselves if they liked what they saw. And I also met other people who started to become sponsors for my show. And that really was, that was a huge turning point. And then I would see Jack, where I would go to the Memorial Tournament and do a show for the tournament. And anyhow, in 2018, I received the Bob Jones Award. And both Jack and Barbara Nicklaus have received the Bob Jones Award. And I asked them if they would be my presenters.
Mm-hmm.
And they said yes. And then the next October, I got a call from the World Golf Hall of Fame, and they said, "Dennis, you're a finalist." And before that, it was like really a secret. Nobody knew anything, and they started announcing the finalists. So they said, "We'll call you back next week." It was on October the 12th, 2018. And so I get a phone call, and it's from the World Golf Hall of Fame. And immediately Jack Nicklaus goes, "Dennis," and Gary Player at the same time, they said, "Dennis, we're calling you to let you know you've just been elected to the World Golf Hall of Fame, and we were your advocates."
Wow.
And the whole week, I figured I got no shot. There's no way I'm getting in. But had I known that Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player were my advocates, I would have slept a lot easier. I was totally unprepared for this. I had my "It's nice to be nominated" speech. And when they gave me that news, I couldn't stop crying. And when I composed myself, I said, "Wow, you guys must have done some sales job on these other people," because in the room were 16 other people from all over the world: Australia, China, Europe, all the people from the R&A, the USGA, the PGA Tour, the PGA. I said, "I bet half these people never even heard of me." And Jack said, "No, Dennis, that's not true." He said, "Everyone in that room had heard about you." He said, "But when Gary and I got done, they heard a heck of a lot more." And so I asked Jack later on, I asked Jack and Barbara if we could get the band back together and if they would be my presenters. And they said yes. And that was both of those nights, the Bob Jones Award and the World Golf Hall of Fame ceremonies, both of those were incredible.
That's a culmination of just some incredible awards that you've received, and you are the World Golf Hall of Fame. There's only 150 in the entire history of the World Golf Hall of Fame. There's only 150 people in there, right?
I think it's about 160, but that's close enough.
Yeah, I mean,
the game of golf's over 500 years old.
That's unbelievable. Talk about some of the others. There's the litany of awards, and I just want people to get a flavor for how you've been honored over the years. So you talked about the Ben Hogan Award. You talked about the you're one of 12 honorary lifetime members of the PGA of America. Talk about some of those awards, and do any of them have any more special meaning than the others?
Well, I think each one of them at the particular time it happened to me had a tremendous effect on my career, because it was giving me encouragement that I was doing something positive, and that people, my peers in the golf industry, were recognizing that. And that gave me a sense of validation. And the first real big award I got was the Ben Hogan Award. And that was it's given by the Golf Writers of America for the person who has the greatest comeback from injury or illness in that particular year. And so I got it at a dinner in New York, but I took it with me when I had a show in Fort Worth, and I have a picture with Ben Hogan, and it looks like he's giving it to me.
That's awesome.
That was kind of cool. And his wife said to me, she goes, it's a statue. It's a bronze statue of Ben Hogan. And she goes to me, where'd you get that? And Ben Hogan poked her in the ribs, and he goes, that's the Ben Hogan Award, silly. And then I said, Mr. Hogan, would you sign my hat? He goes, yeah, don't move. And he signed my hat while I was wearing it. And then he goes like this. And his wife goes, why, Ben, that's some of your best work. And they went arm in arm on to lunch.
Yeah.
And another time I went, he watched me hit golf balls. And I got there, and the first time I met him was at Shady Oaks. And I said, Mr. Hogan, would you watch me hit some golf balls? And he kind of was non-committal about the whole thing, and he went to have lunch. So I went out there and I hit golf balls for about 2 hours. Then I came back, and as I was leaving, he came out the door, and I said, I was disappointed he didn't come out to watch me. He goes, I've been watching you for 2 hours. When in the old clubhouse, you could watch the range from where he was having lunch.
Mm.
So that was pretty cool. And he said, you know, son, he said, you might be the best golfer of all. And I said, I don't think so, but I knew what he meant as having to overcome what he had to overcome, and seeing what I was battling, that I took that as a very sincere compliment.
Yeah.
With all of these.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Johnny. When you think about traits like that, character traits, Dennis, like you referred to with yourself and with Ben, what do you think are some of the top traits that allow someone like yourself or Ben to continue to achieve so much?
Well, I think this applies to anything. This is a universal message. That's what I'm trying to do in my show. It's a universal message. It applies to everyone and almost every situation. And the only way I know how to do it is through hard work. And I think this applies to selling. It applies to how you conduct your life. It depends on how you treat others. But I think that there's no substitute for hard work and perseverance. If you can put those things together, I think you can be successful at anything.
Yeah.
And that's about the only thing I know. I was very lucky that I had two wonderful parents and a great sister. And I got to spend all that time with my dad, crisscrossing America in a minivan. And he would tell me all the life lessons that I learned to overcome this problem that I had to deal with. I would say 99% of them I learned from my dad, who always would say things like, you can't do anything good with a bad attitude. You get out of it what you put into it. If you want to get good at something, hang out with other people who do this particular thing well. Listen. That's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Right.
And listen to what they say, because pretty soon, if you follow their advice and work at it, you'll be doing this thing well too. So a lot of these things I learned from just by myself, trial and error, but I was mentored by two great parents, and my sister still is an incredible help to me along the way on this journey. And listen, anyone who has any success at all didn't do it all by themselves. They had to have a little help.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that I had the help that I did get. Now, having said that, I was the one that went out and hit the golf balls and did all the other things that went with it. But it was a bad thing happened to me. One of the good things that did happen was I was able to spend this time with my dad. And I think it was so traumatic. It was traumatic for me. It was very equally as traumatic, almost probably for my parents, to see me having to go through all this. But at least they got to see that I was going in the right direction and that I was doing something good. And I was reasonably happy doing it.
Yeah. And giving back. And giving back. Yeah.
It's that with at the risk of, I'm just going to ask it. Have you ever contemplated, with all the awards and all the incredible things that you've accomplished, have you ever contemplated what your life would have been like without the accident? And I don't mean to ask that in a trivial way.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think I'm the most proud of is that I made I absolutely maxed out on what was possible, because when I was laying in that bed in the hospital 48 years ago, I didn't think anything was possible. So the fact that I maxed out, I've done shows with Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player. I've done 30 clinics with Tiger. From my Hall of Fame speech, this is one of the two best lines I had.
Yeah.
I said that, and then I said, "Can you believe I'm in the World Golf Hall of Fame before Tiger Woods?"
Yeah,
that's a great line. Great.
So, but to answer your question, I would say that doing what I've done, and my original goal in this life was to make it through this world on my golf skills. And I actually did that. So I accomplished my goal. I did it in a different way, but I would trade everything in a nanosecond to have a normal life. Because there are so many things I didn't get to do. There's so many things that I wish I could have done. And one of those things was being deprived of playing in golf tournaments for all these years. But the fact that I played in the US Adaptive Open and was able to win that kind of smoothed over a little of that area. But no, listen, I think what I accomplished was whatever adjective you want to put on it: remarkable, amazing. And it is. I'm telling you, if this wasn't me and I heard about a guy who did this stuff, I'd say, wow, that's pretty darn good. But there's just, I would like to have done it in a conventional, normal way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for all the things that I have. And that doesn't mean that I am trying to second guess myself. The only thing I could do, and the only thing that was in my control, was to try and figure this out for myself. And when I started this, there was no way to play golf as I do. We had to figure that out. And the way that came about was pretty interesting too, because I was hitting, when I got out of the hospital and when I got out of rehab, I went to Florida and I was hitting golf balls every day out of my wheelchair on the range. And finally, I couldn't stand it anymore because I was hitting my drive about 180 and I wanted to see how I could play. So I got these two high school kids. I still had the original setup with the pillow, the strap, and the rope. And these two high school kids pushed me over to the first tee, and the first hole was 310 yards. So I figured if I hit my drive good, I could probably get home in two. And so I hit the drive down the middle, and I picked up everything. They pushed me down. They picked me up again. They put the pillow under me, tied the strap on, and I had about 130 yards to go. I hit a 5-wood pin high about 30 feet from the pin. And so they were going to do it again. I was just off the edge of the green. I was going to do it again. And I said, forget it. I leaned out the side of the wheelchair and putted it up for a gimme. So I made a par. That's the first hole I played in 9 months. And it was probably one of the best pars ever made. And everybody was watching from the clubhouse. So I come in, they're cheering and everything. And I said, oh, that's great. Yeah, it took me 45 minutes to play the first hole. It's going to take me like 12 hours to play 18 holes.
That sounds like you, Johnny. That sounds like you and me, buddy.
So my friend who was helping me saw me sitting on a bar stool, and he said, tomorrow when you come back, I think I got this figured out. So he cut the legs off the bar stool, put it on the passenger side of the cart. And that's really how I got back on the course. That enabled me to play golf. And we had 2 prototypes after that. The seat that's on my cart now is 45 years old, still works. And
because it swivels, right? Did that
swings out? Yes, it swivels out to the side. I'm facing forward. It swings out to the side, and then I hit my shot, and it swings back in. And
so, Dennis, with this technology, I got to believe you're the first person. Now we see many people are playing golf from a cart. If there's people listening that have, friends or family, or like, how would somebody begin that process today? It's probably, I know it's a lot, you kind of paved the way. Is there technology available, special clubs available, accessories? How does it work?
Well, all of that is possible. And when I went to play in the U.S. Adaptive Open this summer, if you're at your home golf course, I would venture to say it would be a very rare occasion where you saw somebody playing golf as I do, or somebody with no legs, 2 artificial legs playing golf, or 1 arm, or blind. And at this tournament, there were 96 people.
Wow.
In these categories, these various 8 categories. And I'm telling you, it was the most amazing, inspiring thing I've ever seen. Any person with a heart should go watch this golf tournament.
Right.
Because you will see things that you are absolutely amazed at. And so what I did was, when we came up with this, I wanted to make this available to anyone. And so I thought, somebody said, well, you should patent this and make money off of this. And I said, I think that's not good karma. I don't want to make any money off of this. I want to be able to help others who are in a similar situation. So on my website, denniswalters.com, there's a blueprint that shows you how to do it. You can make your own, or what I did was I switched to what's called a solo rider cart. That's the brand name of the cart. It's basically a takeoff on my idea, in that it's a single rider cart for one person. The seat swings out to the side. They have some models that raise up, down. And the reason why I switched to that was, if you have something like that, they'll let you go on the greens. And so my home course said that I could drive my cart on the greens, but every place else said, no, you have to have it like a solo rider cart. And there's also another cart called the para golfer, which is a little different. It stands you up a little higher in a little different position. That really doesn't work for me, because I've had this set up for 45 years. And so, but there are options like that. There's also the PGA of America has a Project Hope, helping our patriots everywhere. And a lot of the PGA professionals have been helping wounded soldiers. So there's a lot more knowledge about how to help people with disabilities, whether you have one arm, one leg, no legs. In the old days, there was nothing. And it was just, everything was trial and error. Now at least there's more information. And I would encourage anyone with a disability, whatever it is, there's a way around it. There's a way to try it. And listen, playing golf is not the most important thing in the world, but if it's something you want to do, it then becomes important. And whenever I do a show for wounded soldiers or anybody, I tell them that playing golf for me personally was far better medicine than any pill I could take. And it's a great way to spend time with your family and friends in the fresh air, the sunshine. You're out there getting exercise instead of staying at home, watching TV. And it's a great social interaction, a great way to interact with people. You're needling your buddies, you're challenging the putting contest, driving contest. And so the problem is, as I see it, if you're sitting at home in a wheelchair, one of the last things you'd think you'd be able to do is to play golf.
Yeah.
But it's the old story. If I can do it, you can do it. And so I'm hoping that the various institutions in golf, especially the USGA, will publicize the US Adaptive Open. The PGA of America will continue to promote its Project Hope programs, so that people with disabilities who often don't get a fair shake, as far as one of the things that bothers me the most is the word diversity. If you look up the word diversity in the dictionary, it says all humans. And a lot of companies, a lot of sports organizations, a lot of businesses think that they're doing good by having a program they call diversity, when in most cases it is built on the color of their skin or their sex. And I'm all for helping everybody, but what bothers me is the word diversity means everyone. It's like, when was the last time you saw a guy read the news in a wheelchair? It's never happened to my knowledge. So, or a blind person who could read Braille, could read the news. And that's real diversity. So diversity, when used properly, is great. When it's used, again, in my opinion, and please no letters or cards or anything, but this is my opinion, and I'm betting you a nickel I'm correct. Use the word diversity as it is intended to be used, all humans. And that's kind of something that I hope I can help change.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, can I go back to your show? For people that haven't seen it, you always have a dog in the show, and you teach them to do tricks, everything from teeing the ball up. Can you talk a little, and I think you use mainly rescue dogs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. I've had 5 of the greatest dogs in America, and they've all been rescued. Anybody looking for a dog or a cat, an animal shelter or rescue group is a great place to begin your search.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And my advice is to have a crystal clear picture of what you want, so that when you see it, you'll recognize it instantly. And every other dog that doesn't fit that description, that's not for you. But most people go and get the first one that licks their hand, and without thinking about it. And it's too important a decision. It's a 15-year commitment to make it on an emotional basis, in my opinion. And I have had 5 dogs. The first dog I got shortly after my accident, and her name was Muffin. And I never taught her anything, but her job was to lift my spirits. And many times before I got the dog, I just laid in bed doing nothing. But when I got the dog, it was my responsibility to care for her and take her out. So once I was out, we lived right on the golf course anyhow. I went over to the golf course with my dog. And after that, the next 4 dogs I trained to be service dogs to help me in real life. mostly by picking up things that I can't reach, which according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, that's one of the requirements to be a legit service dog. And so my dog, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal in a way because it helps me. And I also know that it helps the dog because he knows he has a responsibility and we're a team. And so it's made a big difference in my life because of the companionship, the fact that there's no drama in my house. We've never had an argument. And I'm never separated from these dogs.
Yeah.
And so people go, you live by yourself? No, I live with Gus, my dog.
Yeah.
Going out to dinner by yourself? No, I'm going with Gus.
Yeah.
And
Gus listens.
Yeah, it's no drama. I love that. You know, there's no one raises their voice in this house, and we all, you know, the two of us get along great. And I know that he knows he's helping me. I know that for a fact. I can be in another room. I drop something. He's there before, just after it hits the floor. And so in this, when I got my second dog, I decided to teach it how to do various things.
Yeah.
And I taught him how to do math by barking out the answers, teeing up golf balls. And I carried this through. My second dog's name was Mulligan. Second dog took a mulligan.
Yeah.
Third dog, Benji Hogan. So a lot of people name their dog Hogan, but this was Benji Hogan because all my dogs look like Benji the movie dog.
Yes.
Then I got Bucky. I named him after my dad, and this one is named his real name is Augusta, but we call him Gus, Gussie, Gus Man, and so I tried to teach Benji how to hit a golf ball, but I didn't do a very good job, and I was kind of discouraged. So I didn't try with Bucky. But when I was looking, to find each one of these dogs takes about 8 or 9 months because I know exactly what I'm looking for. And if it doesn't fit this criteria that I have, then it's not for me. Because I know as much as I want a dog, if it's not the right one for me, it's not going to work. I'd rather not have a dog than have one that's not going to work. And I took my time and I finally found. Each time, everybody goes, wow, you got another great dog? I go, come on. I know how to do this. I know what I'm looking for. And so this time I wrote down everything. In the 9 months I was looking for Gus, I wrote down all the things I wanted to do. And hit a golf ball was like 4th on the list. And so I taught him how to do it. And I'm telling you, he's really good at golf. And so he hits in the show, he comes out. The first thing he does is he's the official greeter. As the crowd is assembling, he goes around and talks to each person, jumps up, you know, interacts with all the people. Then he sits on a chair and I ask him, when it's his turn, after I'm introduced, he sits on a chair, I ask him questions and he barks out the answers. For example, I'll tell him we have 3 categories: math, general information, and golf trivia. So I asked him, how many times did Jack Nicklaus win the Masters? 6 barks. How about Arnold Palmer? 4 barks. What about Tiger? 5 barks. And then I said, how many times did I win the Masters? And he looks at me, you know, like, you don't bark, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I've since added this addition. I say, okay, well, that's true. I said, but how many times did I win the USGA Adaptive Open Seated Division? 1 bark.
That's awesome.
So hopefully next year it'll be 2 barks.
Yeah,
But,
I was going to ask you about that. So you will defend your title?
I would say so. Yeah, it was tough. There was 100 degrees, 6.5 hour rounds, course uphill, downhill.
Yeah. Where was it this year?
It was at Pinehurst number 6.
Pinehurst number 6.
It was an incredible experience and a real challenge. And so I'm going to play some golf this winter. I'm not starting at 0 now. I'm advanced to the point where I'm way better than I was before. I still got a long way to go, but at least I'm ahead of where I was last year. So I'm
Hey,
going to play
let's
some golf this winter.
Just so Johnny and I know, how far are you hitting the drive now? You're going to embarrass us when you tell us.
Man.
You know what? Distance is really not my forte, but I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Like when I took on this challenge, I said, my drives will be great because that's the swing I use in my show. So I hit the ball probably, it depends, ideal conditions. I could probably only hit it about 200 yards, but I know where it's going. It's going right down the middle. And so when I started to take on this challenge, I said, I better start at the cup and work backwards. So I started out trying to make 1 foot putts, and I couldn't even hardly make a 1 foot putt. That's how bad I was. And my chipping was horrible. I'm stubbing them, I'm blading them over the green into the street, and hitting the ball off the ground is something I don't do in my show. So all these things I had to learn, and it took a while. And finally, one day I said, I'm going out there. And because I really didn't want to go out on the course, but after about 6 weeks of trying to master these things, I ventured out there, and I'm gaining on it.
Yeah. Hey, let's dig in.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Let's dig in a little bit on the show itself. So I know people that have seen the show, and the adjectives are what you described: incredible, amazing, inspirational. I think you've traveled over 3 million miles and done over 3,000 shows, really all over the world. Can you tell us a little bit specifically about, because I want listeners to hear, and then we'll talk about maybe how do you get booked for these shows and that kind of stuff. So first, talk about specifically like what you do in the show, and then we'll talk about how people can get more awareness about it.
Okay. Well, my two favorite shows, they're tied for first. Off the first tee at Augusta National and at St. Andrews. And so those are my two favorite shows. The show, as I mentioned briefly before, it's in 3 acts. We have the opening act. The first part of the show is when I tell my story, and the third part is when I hit all my trick shots. I have these various clubs. They're made out of unusual things. I hit balls off like 3-foot-high tees. I hit them while they're rolling. I hit through fire. It's a death-defying swing through fire shot. Don't try it at home. Try it at a friend's house.
Yeah.
And, I have clubs made out of radiator hose Macar, one that has 3 universal joints.
Which is flopping around, right?
Yeah, and the other one has 3 universal joints, so it flops around even more. And each shot has a little story that goes with it, and the shot is like the punchline. And there's a lot of bad jokes, and so that's basically it. It's showing people golf is pretty hard normally, but when you're hitting through fire or with these funny clubs, I have a club made out of a fishing rod, one with 3 heads. It's a 3-iron, and Titleist has been one of my longtime partners. And I called up the custom club department, and I said, I need a new 3-iron. Oh, that's no problem whatsoever, Dennis. What are the specs on that? And I said, well, can I just maybe send them to you? Oh yeah, just shoot us an email and we'll get this right out. Okay, so my 3-iron has 3 heads.
Yeah.
One, they're welded to each other, and I hit 3 balls at one time. One goes low, one goes medium, one goes high. So I sent him a drawing of this, and the guy calls me back. He says, okay, can you tell us the swing weight on this? I said, dude, it doesn't matter. Just keep grinding until you grind off a bunch of weight that's pleasing to the eye, because you want to, it's going to be really heavy unless you do that. Okay, we'll take it from here. So I get it back, and they go, here's your 3-iron. How'd you like it? I said, man, this is perfect. I said, it's absolutely great. They go, we don't think it's going to be a big seller.
Right.
Anyhow, and so I use all Titleist equipment, and I have golf balls with my dog's picture on them and my logo. So when I was teeing off at the U.S. Adaptive Open, get on the first tee, what kind of ball you playing? One guy says, I got a Titleist, I got a TaylorMade. I said, I got a dog's picture on my ball. They said, I got 2 dots over the tee and Titleist. And I said, my ball has a dog. And so I said to the rules official, I said, do I have to put like 2 dots near the dog's eyes or anything? He goes, no, the dog is your identifying mark. I'm going, oh, okay. Real official like. And so I enjoy doing that, because every show I do, I leave the golf balls at the golf course for the kids that play golf there. And so I like that. And Titleist has been a big help to me in promoting my show. I do a lot of things for them during the year. I also have, the folks at Jersey Mike's help me do my show. Peter Cancro, who owns the company, he's been, I'm like 27 years with him. And so a lot of people have helped me along the way. I've done things for the PGA of America, the USGA, and I do a lot of corporate outings.
This show and corporate outing it's very well established. You've done it thousands of times. People go crazy over it. My brother goes and sees you at this military appreciation event in Michigan.
Yes.
Multiple times. He said it's better every time. How do people get a hold of you? How do they book you? How does that work?
Well, first of all, the show itself is a great fit for every audience. I like to think that I've seen the golf world in a way totally different than anyone else. I've been to one time when I did my show at Augusta National, the next day I did a show at a driving range that used to be like a landfill. And that's a pretty large variation. I've done these things at supermarket openings, used car dealers, some of the greatest golf courses in America, and some golf courses out in grassroots America that you've never heard of. I've done things for young people, do something the next day for IBM executives. So I've really seen the entire scope, unlike almost anybody. And really the best way to get a hold of me and to try and have me come and be part of your event. The thing that makes my show different is that, it's great golf. It's a lot of fun, but there's an uplifting message. And one of the things that I tell the people who come to see the show is that we're betting when you leave here, you'll have a smile on your face and with something to think about. And people, like I said, every show, there's all a wide range of emotions because people are thinking about other people who they want to help. And so it's a unique thing that's good for young, old, whether you have a physical problem or not. A lot of times people come up and they'll say, well, my back hurts or my knee's bad. I quit playing, but now I'm going to go back and try it, because we are encouraging people to do things they didn't think they could. So the best way to combine my event with an event that you're having, or you want us to come to your golf tournament or your golf club, is to go to DennisWalters.com. That's my website. There's all kinds of information about my background, my shows, and how to reach me. And
we'll put that in the show notes, Dennis, along with links to
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms. So you can reach us that way too. But I appreciate that very much. And I hope that some of your listeners will want to have an experience with us, because it's something that's unique. It's different. And yeah, it's great golf, but it also has an uplifting message and a great story.
It is. It's again, I can vouch for the performance, the message. I know people that have attended those shows and they're outstanding. So in our audience, if you're listening and you've got, SKOs coming up, you've got meetings coming up, this show is guaranteed to be a big hit with all in the audience. So we'll put all of that and links to that in our show notes.
The other thing I wanted to mention as well is, if you're having a meeting or you're having a convention, we also do speaking indoors. And usually what I do is I play a video. When I got the Distinguished Service Award from the PGA of America in 2018 or 2008, it was at the PGA Championship in Detroit at Oakland Hills. And so we had the ceremony at the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and the Four Tops were there. It was great. And they played this video, and they said to me, "Dennis, who would you like to be in your video?" And I was joking around. I said, "Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Tiger Woods." So that's who was in the video. And then we were going to I was asked to do this documentary. It's called Get a New Dream. They said, "Well, who should we have in it?" I said, "Well, Arnold Palmer we can do by film, but we can ask Jack and Barbara Nicklaus, Tiger, and Gary Player." And so they're all in Get a New Dream, which is on Peacock. And so what we do at a speaking engagement, I'll play one of these short videos, give a talk, and then take questions from the audience. And my dog will hit a few balls too. And so it's good for a meeting. The thing about my show, I think that's unique and that's beneficial, is that golf among corporations and the population at large is popular. It's very popular. But when you combine that with inspiration and motivation, corporations and companies are always looking for something that's motivating. And if you can combine it with golf, something they're already interested in, then that's a good, powerful combination.
Absolutely.
So we can do it indoors, outdoors, doesn't matter.
Cool.
Dennis, your story of it's got to be the most unique golf, or one of the most unique stories of grit, resilience, perseverance, in the World Golf Hall of Fame. An incredibly unique story, the culminating in manifesting itself into an incredible show that you do. We're so thankful for you to have spent time with us today. You also have a book. I want to mention that, a fantastic book. We'll put all this, the link in the show notes as well. The book is called In My Dreams, I Walk With You, by Dennis Walters. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. You've just been outstanding. Johnny, back to you.
Hey, Dennis, we have a couple rapid fire questions. You want to take a shot at them?
Sure.
Like, what's your favorite meal?
Favorite meal, I'd say, is shrimp and lobster over rigatonis.
Wow. Cream sauce or?
No, red sauce.
Red sauce. Nice. How about, you have a favorite movie?
Butch Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Yeah. Who are those guys? Remember that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who are those guys?
Joe LaFours.
Yeah.
Who are those guys? Yeah.
You have the best concert you ever been to?
Oh yeah. Beatles Shea Stadium.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. Got that going for me.
Yeah, you do.
Now, Dennis, sometimes we ask people if they have a favorite charity that they want people to know about. Do you have one?
I do. It's the rescue group where I got Gussie. It's called the Big Dog Ranch, and it's called Loxahatchee, Florida, but it's basically West Palm Beach. And
do you have that? We want to put that in the show notes.
We'll get that from Dennis and get that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's I was looking for 9 months and his face popped up on my computer screen, and I was there in about 20 minutes, and that's how we started.
There you go. Hey, Dennis, I'm positive our audience is, grateful to have heard your amazing journey. You are, to me, the epitome of hard work and dedication. And thank you so much for joining us today and telling your story.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and your audience, and thanks for the good words.
You got it, Dennis. Thank you.
Yep, we still got it. We're planning for national tour number 46 next year.
Amen. Amen. Best of luck to you in that, Dennis. And for all those that are listening, thank you for listening to The Revenue Builders.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check us out at forcemanagement.com.